Contestants were instructed to supply the production staff with a Ziploc bag containing 5 days worth of undergarments, ew, which would be distributed to contestants once the games were underway. But several contestants said they had waited hours or even days to receive their clean underwear. I have so many questions. Hello, and welcome to Alexasrewm, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people. People who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what is going on with MrBeast. Now, if you are unfamiliar or you haven't been following this story at all, guys, this is only the tip of the iceberg. MrBeast, if you are not familiar, is YouTube's golden boy, the gold standard, as I call it, in the digital marketing space for all things content creation. This is absolutely wild. I want to focus today's conversation around this newest article that came out by the New York Times a little over a week ago about the MrBeast games. Now, before I even got into any of this, I just want to say I was never a fan nor not a fan of MrBeast. Like I said, he is the golden standard of content creation in the marketing space. So I have seen some of his videos. A lot of his content is based on the extremes and very quick edits, quick cuts. So it is just so insane to see the king of YouTube essentially slowly crumbling, his empire slowly crumbling down. And a lot of people are now comparing him to the Beast games, to the Fire Festival from several years back. And you'll start to see some of these comparisons as we get more and more into this. But before I do, if you want to continue following this rabbit hole with me, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss this next MrBeast update from me. So before I get into this article, to give you an idea, in case you have no idea who MrBeast is and you're just new or you're new to the story, I want to give you some context. So I'm going to actually play a clip of this interview, and I might do like a deeper dive of it in a separate video because it's pretty long. It's a little over an hour. Oh, an hour and a half, excuse me. It's about an hour and a half where he's talking about this show in particular. So you'll get an idea of what the Beast games are, how much it's going to cost, the idea behind it, and then we'll get into some of the articles that were recently published, one from Business Insider and then from the New York Times. So if you're ready for it, buckle up and let's dive into this.
That before I came here. So
that set was nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to talk about YouTube. We're going to talk about your main channel. We're going to talk about Feastables. But where we wanted to start was with a headline that everyone read, about a month ago.
I wonder what headline? What headline?
YouTuber MrBeast reportedly in talks for competition series on Amazon's Prime Video in a deal worth $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Care to comment?
That was the headline. That was the thing. Yes, we're doing. We've talked about it a lot. Yeah. We're doing a streaming show, and we're doing one with Prime. This is actually, we were going to do a press release, but I knew we were going to do this podcast, so I was like, let's just make this podcast a press release. So I don't know if that's a conventional way when you do shows like this, but we've. Let me think. I probably should be careful what I say too much. I've never done a streaming show like this. So I don't like with YouTube. I'm super open about everything. I don't.
Well,
I'm just trying to calculate how much I want to talk about the negotiations. There's let's just say Amazon will give us the most creative control, and by most I mean all creative control, and they'll let me do whatever I want. And other platforms, didn't. So there's a lot of. I will see if we get into it later in this. I don't know if we want to dive into it all now, but yeah, there's a reason we went with Amazon. They're awesome. I love you guys. I'm going to try to make the most huge streaming show in history.
I do.
Like, one thing I know, and I'd be so fascinated if a body language expert actually went through this video and broke down his body language, because a lot of people have compared him as kind of sociopathic, and not to diagnose by any means, because again, like I say at the top of every video, I'm not a medical professional. I am not a mental health counselor, professional, none of that. So I won't go as far to say he is a sociopath, but I find it interesting that when he talks, oftentimes, like he has almost like, it appears to be a fake kind of smile. Like he doesn't really like animate his mouth too much. It's very like tight lip, tight mouth. So I always found that interesting. But he says something interesting here where he's telling these two interviewers, yeah, Amazon, the reason why I went with Amazon is because they gave me all creative control ultimately. And as a creator, I mean, that has to be liberating for sure, because all we want is to be able to create the content that we want without having somebody breathing down our neck and telling us what we can or cannot do. That's why we get into the art space to begin with, right? But that can also be equally as dangerous, especially if you're biting off more than you can chew, which appears to be what he did with the Beast games.
Yeah, but first, that's a great hook. Keep watching.
What's the name of the show?
Beast games, right?
Okay.
I think it fits it perfectly. It's going to be, wow. I've not. This will be the first time anyone hears it. It's going to be the largest game show in history, with the most contestants any game show's ever had, with the largest cash prize in history. That I'll probably reveal later, but you can imagine what the cash prize was on Squid Game. It's higher than that. So
here he does something interesting too, because later on they ask him, so like Squid Games, because I know you mentioned Squid Games earlier. Is this like Squid Games? So he's comparing it to Squid Games, the reality show version, not the fictionalized version that was streaming on Netflix. But it seems like this is the way he's framing it. And again, everything in his content is based around the extremes, having to be the biggest, the baddest, the scariest. Almost like Fear Factor, in my opinion, on steroids. And that could be dangerous, because when you're having regular people who are not athletes, who are not necessarily trained properly to perform in a lot of these games, like even thinking about American Ninja Warrior, for example, a lot of these people spend months, even years, even just taking a simple marathon as well too, or a triathlon. How many people, just average people day to day, want to compete in a marathon? The amount of training that goes behind it, because it's a lot to put somebody's body through. And if you aren't prepared, not only mentally, but also physically as well too, you're not going to do so well, and things will go wrong. And this is the thing with Jimmy, is his whole business is based around the extremes, but also more so moving fast. And those two together is just always a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
The largest game show in history, the largest cash prize in history. And to be honest, in my opinion, like the biggest sets in history, is the biggest everything in history. This show, we have it written now, is mind blowing. Like, the problem is, if I say anything about a particular episode, it could give a contestant hears it a little bit of insight. It's like, it's like our normal videos, but just 20 times better. Because obviously, I don't know if that number you read is accurate or not, but I have a bigger budget. So money's not a constraint. And what we were talking about before is, on YouTube, I have to make videos around titles and thumbnails. But on this show, I can do whatever I want. I can just make good content, and I don't have to revolve it around a title and thumbnail. So money's not a constraint on the show. And like, I can also just do anything, which is like a lot more freeing than you would think. And so it's mind blowing, the stuff we're going to be doing.
And kind of like a huge responsibility too. I mean, just think about that. Not only do you have just endless amounts of cash, I mean, not for nothing, Jimmy, like, budget is never really a concern for you anyway. So I don't really know why you're bringing that into the mix. Like, you probably could have funded this on your own, but now you have Amazon giving you money, and that's fine. That's fair. Whatever, do your thing. But it's a lot of responsibility for somebody to have, somebody who doesn't have experience necessarily with creating essentially a reality competition show. And a lot can go wrong on those shows, as we're going to dive into in just a little bit, and why there needs to be more safety regulations that are implemented on these sets.
Can you give us an example there of, like, it's a lot more freeing than you think?
Yeah.
Can you give us even like one example of, like, what does it free you up to do that you wouldn't do on YouTube?
Well, with the YouTube video, it's just kind of, it's people are clicking to watch a video around a title and thumbnail, and if you veer too far off, it's just kind of how it is on YouTube. They're just like, okay, I'll go watch another video or whatever. They just kind of, you just have to revolve. Like, if I just got up and I don't know, someone else, like Ryan Tran sat down, like, your attention would just kind of plummet. Whereas the show, when you sit down for a movie, you're kind of just like there to enjoy it and get embraced. Or in a show, you're just kind of like along for the ride, and it's not, you don't expect it to just be super cut dry. You almost like when it does take twists and turns, you know what I mean? Which is just a whole different vibe. And so for this, I can do anything. The constraint is, I have the most contestants in history, I have the largest cash prize in history, and that's it. Outside of that, I can do anything.
I actually think that the big difference there is that the end of each episode has to operate as the hook for the next episode, which is pretty different than your YouTube videos, right?
Well, we're reinventing everything. I mean, like, we can, like, sometimes we'll start the next challenge halfway through an episode, and like how do I say what some of this stuff is without saying it? It's like, we're throwing everything out the door and just trying to really think from, like first principles, what actually makes a show great. Like, and like now it'll probably be 6+ hours of content, whereas my normal videos are 20 minutes. So like the character building, the storytelling will be out of this world compared to our normal videos. Like the closest video to what this would be
which is so interesting because here he's like talking about like character building and like writing a script. But if this is a competition show, essentially when you're coming forward and saying, everything we do is real, nothing's fake, nothing's script, this, that, and the third, and you're making claims about that publicly, which I don't have a problem with. We all know that these reality shows are scripted to an extent. I'm not stupid. I grew up watching The Hills, and I knew even watching that The Hills was definitely scripted, obviously. But when you're presenting something as fact, when it in fact is fiction, you're talking about character building and arcs, and even notice the tone in his language and the way that the words that he's using, and even the expletives that he uses at times too, in these interviews, talking to these other people like he's talking to an adult audience, whereas his content is marketed towards children, towards a much younger audience. And this is something else that I feel like a lot of the times he lets the mask slip from who he really is and who he wants to be and who he essentially built his brand on and where his money is coming from, which is, again, targeting children. So it's a little concerning for me. And I mean, again, I don't have a problem with him scripting a reality television show. That's not the first time that's ever been done, but be forthright with it, or don't even talk about it at all.
Like our ages 1 to 100,
Yeah.
or, with the cubes and stuff, but even that will pale in comparison. I'm so excited. I wish I could just say what some of the episodes are. But it's like with the streaming show, because the budgets are so big, it's like one episode, we'll just give away, you know what I mean? And that's just kind of be like a side thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of spoiler, but stuff like that. I'm so excited.
I actually think the 2 people trapped for 100 days.
Yeah.
That one for me, like that was, I think, your longest video. Is it not 27 minutes?
Well, I counted to 100,000.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
of
Most
the
recent
video.
of the recent era, that was your longest video, and actually one that I really enjoyed.
Same.
And the character development in that one was, I think, what kept everyone watching for a long time. Like and there was a little bit of question of like, their relationship and like how they were getting along.
Do they hate each other?
Do they hate each other? Are they actually in love? Like there was this like a lot of interesting stuff there that tapped into the character development that I think we're used to on reality TV.
So on that one, if I would have done that video 18 months ago, instead of being, I think that was 27 minutes, it probably would have been 12. It's crazy. If I made content like this 4 or 5 years ago, instead of like what people would call the beastification of YouTube or whatever, I think the videos would have done better. I just kind of grew up on YouTube and I've been making content my whole life. And so like, obviously I'm much smarter at 25 than I was at 21. I just thought was good content. And now I look back and I'm like, even some of our older videos, I can't watch
on YouTube.
Yep.
There are people in television that have been doing that and on streaming for like decades.
Exactly. Yep.
Are you guys going to bring people in to help with that? Or how are you guys streaming have started to do this past letting scenes?
I'm so excited.
And when it comes to the show,
that show is going to crush.
When it comes to the show,
I need caffeine.
Letting scenes breathe.
The last thing you need, Jimmy, is caffeine.
Giving people more emotion. That's something that you guys have started to do this past year more so on YouTube.
Yep.
There are people in television that have been doing that and on streaming for like decades.
Exactly. Yep.
Are you guys going to bring people in to help with that? Or how are you guys going to look at ushering that type of storytelling in?
Yeah. Well, these episodes on the Amazon show are massive. I mean, we're already hired like 80, 90 people to help with it, and we're going to need way more. So I'm bringing a lot of people in. But no, it's going to be more in how we do our things the YouTube way. We're not going to take what we do and just completely change it all and just, adapt to how the status quo is. It's going to be kind of a hybrid, because obviously there are things that, game shows do well, but there are other things they don't. Like one thing I don't really like is like when there's a lot of action happening and they just cut to someone in a takeaway room, clearly filmed after and talking about it. Like preferably, we haven't filmed it yet, but ideally we'd be able to get those kind of emotions and thoughts in the midst of the challenge, right? Which takes a lot of forethought and a lot of skill, because these aren't scripted. And so like if you miss the shot, well then you have to go back and get it. So it's like one take, either you get it or you don't. That's just like one of 100 examples of ways I want to
And if you don't get it, you don't. So again, you're admitting that you are scripted. It's unscripted, but it is scripted. So there's a lot of contradicting statements here, but
and adapt, because
it's
like
important.
I know why they don't do it, because it's very hard, right? If it's not scripted, how do you get these lines you want from people while they're doing this intense challenge? So and in their heads you can't. So then they just, after the show, they go, hey, say these things to a camera. And so cut from a challenge to them in a takeaway room. And like, I might end up having that, but ideally I don't. So that's like one of the things we're really prepping for. And so like really knowing the pace of all the challenges and things we're going to do, and know where people will be most likely to say things, and then making sure you have a good camera shot there and like you're ready to capture. Because I can't go, hey, say this, and then put a camera on them, because it's not scripted. You know what I mean?
Even though you had people eating Feastables instead of having actual food, an actual meal that was more than 400 calories, and filming them and asking them to talk about how good Feastables taste. Okay, Jimmy. Okay.
So just like really thinking through things at like a level that I don't think anyone has ever thought about before. And that's just like one example of it. And then just doing that like to 1,000 different ways, I think will add up where it will feel nothing like a normal game show. But it'll have the Beast feel and just look more, high budget, if that makes sense.
I also think you have another tool, which is yourself. Like you are a character in the game show. So the reason why a lot of times I do that is to contextualize the emotion or contextualize whatever is happening. But you can do that, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying like with your voiceover or with...
Was the plan be like November, December, back half of this year?
What does the average Beast main channel video cost right now?
Ooh, that's a fun one. Well, obviously it varies. It's like 7 days on a deserted island is completely different than the video we're filming a couple of days where we have 100 people, ages 1 through 100, and we're redoing that. So I think the average video right now is around $2.1 million just for the production of the video. And then obviously I have a lot of people that I pay and things like that. So if you include every cost, it's probably $3.5 million a video now.
Wow.
It's pretty expensive.
You remember the first time we came out here and we sat with your mom and looked at your
I do actually. Wait, what was the cost back then?
I mean, there was videos that were around $200,000.
Yeah, and $500,000 was high.
$500,000 was high. Yeah.
Can I go back to that world?
Yeah.
Notice how he does this subtle like product placement. Like he takes a sip of this.
What was the cost back then?
I mean, there was videos that were around $200,000.
Yeah, and $500,000 was high.
$500,000 was high. Yeah.
Can I go back to
Look
that
at that. He just like nonchalantly puts his Feastables leaning against this can. I can't, but this is the kind of guy that we're dealing with. So I'm not going through the whole interview, guys, because that's gonna take up this entire video. I want to get to the crux of this, which is the Beast games. So I want to go through this Business Insider article. I want to jump to the New York Times article. So this came out the other day from Business Insider about his partnership with Amazon. So here again, where we just saw Jimmy, this was the before. Him excited about the news when the news was first announced, I believe back in January or sometime earlier this year. And now, or excuse me, that was posted 4 months ago. So when he was excited, when this news was first becoming public, and now since then, it seems like things are turning sour. So Amazon's coming reality show with YouTube's biggest star, Jimmy Donaldson, known as MrBeast, was supposed to be a bold bet on the future of TV. But it started to turn into a massive headache for the tech giant. Amazon announced the show called Beast Games in March and said it would offer a $5 million cash prize believed to be the biggest in TV history. It seemed like a coup for Jennifer Psaki, the head of Amazon MGM Studios, who needed a hit, especially as the Prime Video was about to make its first big pitch to the TV ad sales community. So Amazon was desperate for a hit. Was it because of the J-Lo flop? Who knows? Who knows? I also heard there was a Lord of the Rings thing too that totally bombed. If you guys have seen that, let me know. But they were desperate for a hit. So they tapped into MrBeast. And essentially what they said was, hey, we're going to give you complete creative control over everything, which we just heard from the devil himself. Agreeing to give Donaldson creative control and approval over ad sponsors as part of its efforts to land the deal during a competitive bidding process. We really need a hit, one Amazon insider said, so they just let him do whatever. And again, that's extremely dangerous because when you're giving somebody complete and utter creative control, I mean, it sounds like every creator's wet dream, right? You get to do whatever you want without anybody, like I said, breathing down your neck and saying, oh, no, you can't do this, or oh, we have budgetary restraints and you can't spend your money on this and we have to allocate these resources to this. If you've ever worked in film or any kind of creative space, you understand that these are a lot of the times, a lot of the conversation. In fact, has played a huge role into the Rust movie case, which we also covered the trial here on this channel. I can link that in the description box below, where, I mean, that, whereas that film had a significantly lower budget, I think it was like only a few $1 million, something like $6 million, one of the lowest budgets in, I think, film history of modern day. And this is a big problem because people compromise on things like safety to pinch pennies. So Amazon didn't comment. Despite being a dominant spender on entertainment content, Prime Video has faced questions about its popularity with viewers. So right now, only 3.1% of streaming TV viewing in June for Amazon, after YouTube's 9.9% and Netflix's 8.4%. And I feel like this is only going to jump up more and more as more creators start to post on platforms like YouTube, even Rumble. I've seen more and more creators join in on. Now Twitter even has their own streaming. You're allowed to stream on Twitter as well too. So people are seeking alternative ways to consume content that's outside of your typical streaming service or even your typical cable TV. I mean, at this point, cable TV is essentially dead. So one top ad holding company buyer briefed on Amazon's pitch for Beast Games earlier in the spring told Business Insider he was impressed, but described it as expensive compared with other prominent TV sponsorships. So I guess he wanted $100 million. Amazon pitched the show as a sponsorship with the chance to have products integrated into it for advertisers spending upward of $10 million. So top ad holding company. So per product, you have to spend of up to $10 million, which is some serious chunk of change. They're starting to act, the same person said, they're starting to act like a TV player. So they ultimately ended up passing, the buyer said, but the positive sentiment around the show was thrown into question when the New York Times article, which we just read a little clip from in the beginning intro of this video, dropped a bombshell report this month centering on safety concerns about the production of Beast Games. The Times reported that over a dozen people who participated in the show's first installment said that they didn't get enough food or medical care, so basic human needs, and that some competitors were injured from the physical challenges. So with his $100 million budget, he couldn't allocate he just couldn't possibly, his unlimited budget, he couldn't allocate just some of that budget towards, I don't know, providing basic human needs like food and water. Oh no, we're going to get into that. This isn't a situation where somebody had to pinch pennies. You're saying, you literally just stated you had an unlimited budget, essentially, and you could do whatever the heck you wanted. But okay. Donaldson's camp, repped by the Crisis PR pro, Matthew Hiltzik. So I think he was the same Crisis PR guy that Harvey Weinstein had hired back in the day, said, which is ironic considering all the other allegations that have come out associated with associates associated with MrBeast. But we'll get into that in a separate rabbit hole video. Said only a handful of people were injured and blamed a lot of execution problems on local staffers in Vegas hired to handle shooting for the show. Whatever the cause, the negative press attention couldn't have helped the show's advertising prospects. The first Amazon insider said that the streamer had been close to closing deals, but that people in the company suspected that the controversy had been hampering the negotiations. It's going to be a mess, this person added. And my God, they were right. A second Amazon insider said producers were already talking about making a Fyre Fest-like documentary about Beast Games. So this has been swirling around the rumor mill. Again, no way to confirm or deny this until there's either a press release for this or it just happens to reveal itself on Amazon. If you know, you know. And if you don't know what Fyre Fest is, another situation where some brilliant guy comes up with this idea for a luxury music and camping event that took place in 2017 on a Bahamian island of Great Exuma. Is promoted by American businessman Billy McFarland, who I think was actually arrested and went to did serve some time for this. And rapper Ja Rule as one-of-a-kind experience with big-name musical headlines. So it was supposed to be the festival of all festivals. And then people essentially arrived to the island, only to realize that it was kind of like Woodstock 99, but like a million times worse, because they were on this island. And I think some people couldn't even like get back home. There were like delays in flights, and it was just a complete and utter mess. If you want to check out those documentaries, I highly recommend you do. I think there's one on Hulu that was really good. That's called, I think, just Fire Festival. But a lot of people are comparing this to that. And I almost wonder, and this is speculation brain, did Amazon go in knowing that there's a possibility if this flops and this goes really bad, here's our backup plan? I don't know. It feels kind of Amazon. It stinks like something Amazon would do. But that's my opinion. That's my speculation. And if that's the case, that's kind of disgusting. Controversy raises questions about what happens next for Beast Games, because guys, it's still filming. There are still people actively competing in this thing. Complicated reality show like Beast Games, complicated is an interesting understatement, would typically go through careful legal vetting to identify and manage inherent risks. Something Amazon's own reality show experts who work on hits like Shark Tank and Survivor, the OG like competition reality show, would know. So why would you give this kid, I mean, apparently, allegedly, he's 26, which I find it very hard to believe, to say the least. But anyways, why, if you're giving this kid essentially this complete creative control, when it's not like you aren't, like, this isn't your first rodeo, Amazon, why wouldn't you think to say, hey, and I don't know, maybe because MrBeast, Jimmy Jim, bullied them into giving him this, and they were so desperate that they were like, yes, Jimmy, take our bid, we'll give you whatever you want. And shame on them if that's the case, but I mean, it's like, it's not your first rodeo. You know the protocols, you know the safety guidelines, you know what to do. You're the professionals. He's a YouTube creator. There's a big difference between being a reality show producer and like of this scale and creating 20-minute videos on YouTube. There's a big difference there. All you do is go through worst case scenarios and work backwards from there. The second Amazon insider said, in this case, MrBeast's team was in control, not Amazon. With the show in production and a lot of money on the line, Puck reported that Amazon had paid nearly $100 million for the show. It's hard to imagine Beast Games getting canceled. Yeah, it's a lot of money to be riding on. But Mike Hopkins, the senior vice president of Prime Video and Amazon, is all over the situation, the two insiders said. One added that there had been discussions of pushing the still unannounced launch date to distance it from the VR fiasco. The insiders said they also worried that the situation could give Amazon higher-ups an excuse to cut Amazon MGM Studios' budget for unscripted shows or entertainment spending altogether, especially as live sports are becoming costlier and devouring a bigger share of media companies' content spending. Yikes. They're still one of the biggest spenders. Yada, yada, yada. They seem like Teflon about their abilities to survive through controversy. Yeah, so they're essentially saying Amazon will prevail. And I mean, I have no doubt about it because it's Amazon. It's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, I think the same may be true about MrBeast because that is how big he is. So now I want to get into this New York Times article that was published a little bit over a week ago. So now that we have an idea of what Jimmy's vision was for the games, who he is, how big this was, how big of a budget it is. Now I want to get into what these allegations actually are. so we can have a deeper understanding of that. So again, this is only the tip of the iceberg, my friends. But still, I think it's something that we need to continue to highlight and put pressure on him for, to take accountability, because if these allegations are true, this is disgusting. So, willing to die for MrBeast and $5 million. The contestants in the internet stars Beast Games expected outlandish challenges and signed contracts that acknowledge risks of serious injury and death. Still, few were prepared for the conditions on set. So there's our friend Jimbo Jimberson, and look at all the people in the crowd. Do these look like adults? I mean, like, considering the amount of expletives he uses in a lot of his interviews, or a lot of like the outtakes or behind the scenes, it's just so ironic to me. And this is your audience. These kids, I mean, how old is this kid possibly? Like, it's absolutely insane to me. So this came out a little bit over a week ago. So Jimmy Donaldson is the internet's fairy godmother, better known online as MrBeast. So this is a little bit more of his background. Extravagant prizes has become his calling card. He's given away homes, cars, a private island, and lots of cash. Who does that sound like, my friends? Oprah much? But all right. Usually it comes with a dark twist. Once he offered a man $10,000 a day for each day he was willing to live in a grocery store without leaving. In his most popular video, 456,000 $456,000 Squid Game in real life. 456 people competed in a game show inspired by the dystopian Netflix drama Squid Game. In the Netflix show Down and Out, contestants play deadly versions of children's games to win $38 million. And Squid Game is a fictional show. So like that should already like kind of present a little bit of a red flag. When in March, Mr. Donaldson and Amazon MGM Studios announced MrBeast Games, reality competition show in the mold of MrBeast's popular videos, thousands of people jumped at the chance, posting on Reddit threads about the application process and waiting, hopefully, to be accepted. The prize, $5 million. Familiar with MrBeast's content and with the lengths to which those who appear in his videos must go in order to win, many expected outlandish and even potentially risky challenges. So everything again about MrBeast is about the extremes and at a fast pace. During an intake process this year, several contestants told the New York Times that they had been asked whether they would be willing to be buried alive or travel to outer space. One contestant recalled being asked if she would be able to swim to shore if thrown overboard from a boat. Willing to be buried alive or travel to outer space. You know what this reminds me of, guys? I don't know if you guys have heard about this, and I heard about it, and then I think now he's getting sued again. But the guy, I forget where he's based out of, but I think his name is like Larry something, and he's like I think he's like an ex-Navy SEAL or something like that, and he has like this like insane horror like maze that you can sign up, and you have to like sign a waiver for, and it's like psychologically like just messes with your brain. And again, he's been sued for like simulating certain things. He's recently come under fire, and I'm not saying that this is what's going on at the Beast Games, but I mean, this level of extremeness is kind of terrifying. Like, willing to be buried alive, like, I mean, that's terrifying. Like, that's not something we see on American Ninja Warrior. Like, especially when you're marketing this towards children, because that's your target audience. Like, I don't know, maybe something more along the lines of, I don't know, the Disney games. Remember those back in that day? Something like that. But I mean, it seems like he wants to be the next Joe Rogan. He wants to be Mr. Fear Factor here. But if you want to do that, there's a way that you do it, Jimmy, that's safe and you take the right steps. I understand that such activities may cause me death, illness, or seriously bodily injury, including but not limited to exhaustion, dehydration, overexertion, burns, heat, and heat stroke. Read a line in a contract reviewed by the Times that applicants were required to sign. Such language is commonplace in reality television show contracts. And yeah, I mean, like, that's fair. And I'm sure that's true. I've never competed in a reality television show because I'm not looking to lose a leg in the process. That's just me. You can't pay me enough money in the world to simulate being buried alive. But I mean, but it is concerning nonetheless. And I think this whole thing is really shining a light into how there needs to be more safety regulations in place for these types of extreme shows. What they did not expect, however, were the more mundane yet potentially dangerous inconveniences that they said had befallen them during the competition. So this is where the crux of the allegations come from. Speaking with the New York Times on the condition of anonymity, due to non-disclosure agreements, there are those NDAs. Who else had everybody sign an NDA like it was freaking candy? And you get an NDA, and you get an NDA, and you get an NDA. Our good friend, Mr. Diddy. But anyways, over a dozen people who participated in the first installment of Beast Games said that they had not received adequate food or medical care, and that some competitors had suffered injuries from the physical challenges. The event was being filmed for Mr. Donaldson's YouTube channel to select contestants to participate in the Amazon MGM show later this summer. So he's monetizing off the fact that he's essentially starving people and not providing proper basic human rights such as medical care to the people who are helping put money in your pockets, Jim. Like, without these people, you're not getting paid. There's no video. So the least you could do is, I don't know, take your laughable, yeah, $500,000 isn't a lot, but now we average, at least 2.5 million. You can't put a little bit of that budget towards, I don't know, providing safety procedures on set, hiring professionals to make sure, highly experienced people. Like, give me a break. Like, you don't know, give me a break. Some contestants left the competition arena on stretchers, a contestant said, though it was unclear if any of those contestants had faced serious medical conditions. Another described watching fellow contestants vomiting and appearing to pass out. There were several hospitalizations. I mean, that's insane. So it's like, oh, not just this one person. And even then, I mean, that's extremely sad. But multiple people, several people were hospitalized. Like, you have a problem, Jim. You got a problem. Maybe you should reevaluate the situation and look and say, okay, maybe I need a little bit more time. Maybe I need to get people who know how to make sure that this thing is safe. Maybe we won't simulate being buried alive. Maybe we'll pick a different challenge that doesn't involve somebody, I don't know, being laid up in a hospital or being carried out onto a stretcher. I don't know, just food for thought. Oh, wait, you don't know anything about providing food now, do you? In a text message, a spokesperson for MrBeast said the shoot was unfortunately complicated. He loves using that word, or his PR team loves using that word, by the CrowdStrike incident, extreme weather, and other and unexpected logistical communication issues. That's just a whole lot of hoopla. Just word salad, not, oh, it's because of this. So no accountability, no saying, hey, we screwed up. And this is why people are comparing it to the Fire Festival. There's no accountability. There's no saying, yeah, we screwed up, should have done this better. When we actually do this thing, we're going to make sure that these procedures are in place so these things don't happen again. But they're saying, oh, it was the weather. Oh, it was this other unexpected logistical and communication. Like, what does that even mean? It's so vague. The spokesperson said MrBeast had started a formal review and had taken steps to ensure that we learn from this experience. Like, that sounds like a Chief Rafferty statement about the case, about the Proctor testimony. That's exactly what it's. It's just a blanket statement that means nothing. It's empty. It has no emotion. It has no feeling. It has no realness to it, in my opinion. Representatives for Amazon MGM Studios declined to comment. So just like that Business Insider article, Mr. Donaldson's content has always relied on the willingness of others, often strangers, to go to extremes to create highly watchable videos. During his meteoric rise to mega virality, some former employees have spoken out about safety concerns on MrBeast sets, but his vast fan base has continued to see him as fundamentally charitable and well-meaning. And I actually posted something the other day on my Facebook too, where somebody was like, oh, but he's so good. He builds houses for these people who don't have, good homes, and he hands out money on the streets to strangers. But notice how there's always a camera in his face, and all of his videos are being monetized. Like, for every 10,000 he gives and he films and he publishes on YouTube, he's getting that times 10 back and more. I think he makes like something like 100, like, I feel like it's several $1 million a month. Let me actually go check this, because this is like gonna bother me. Yeah, per month, this guy makes $5 million plus. And I feel like that's not even probably 100% accurate. Between ad revenue, brand deals, other partnership, and this is as of August 2024. So he's making $5 million a month, like minimum. And that's probably like on a conservative side. He's probably making more. Let's be real. Yada yada yada. Now, amid allegations about Beast Games, as well as recent accusations about inappropriate language used by Mr. Donaldson and a former collaborator, his reputation as well as his multi-million-dollar YouTube empire are on the line. We signed up for the show, but we didn't sign up for not being fed or watered or treated like human beings, one contestant told The Times. Again, basic human needs. The games begin. Mr. Donaldson and the executives at Amazon had ambitions for Beast Games, typical of MrBeast's penchant for superlatives. In a news release this year, studio said the show's $5 million prize would be the biggest prize in streaming and television history, which he said with that gross, creepy, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, his mouth didn't even move. He was just speaking through his teeth like this the whole time, just so creepy and weird, bro. We were blown away by his ambition to make Beast Games the biggest reality competition series ever. And whenever you hear something like this, the biggest prize in streaming and television, and you just hear all of this, like they said, his penchant for superlatives is a perfect way to describe it. You know it's a recipe for disaster. You know it is. And he has full creative control. recipe for disaster. Shooting for the competition started in July with 2,000 contestants. That's a lot of freaking people to manage, Jim. Gathered in Nevada at Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders, for several days. Competitors ate, slept, and lived inside the stadium while competing in challenges like moving heavy objects and an extreme game of capture the flag. Some stayed up to 3 nights. Now, I've also heard too that because this happened to one of the former employees who recently came out with an interview, which we're going to get into in a later video, about like how he did this video that was never released, where he was like locked in a room for 30 days and there was like an ice cream machine, a hot tub, and he had like little things that he had to do. And I think the challenge was like, oh, you can make $300,000 at the end of it. Something, again, all about the extremes, all about the superlatives. And anytime he was going to sleep, they would just leave the lights on. The lights would never go off. And that really like messed with his mind. Now he has insomnia. Again, allegedly, that's what he is claiming. But this seems oddly familiar. But my question is, again, if you're getting $100 million, and this is why I wanted to go through the Business Insider article first, so we can get an idea and go through that interview of how big this thing was before we get into the allegations, is because why aren't you using that budget towards, I don't know, like putting them in a house? I mean, usually in a lot of these reality TV shows, right, they put them up in a house somewhere. You can't even get them a hotel room. You can't allocate, I don't know, probably like 50 to 100 grand of your budget, which is nothing, which is not like literally like what, a tenth of your budget towards giving them proper housing and food, giving them a hotel room to stay in, an actual bed, so that they can physically and mentally be prepared to physically engage in these activities. Like, how does this make sense? How on earth does it make sense to have them sleeping in this gross stadium that hosts sports events that is not meant for sleepovers? Before they arrived at the stadium on July 18, the contestants had to turn in their phones and belongings, including medications. So this is the iffy. I mean, okay, their phones, so I guess they can't like text. It sounds a lot like jury duty, right? They have to turn in their phones, right? They can't scroll through the internet. They can't communicate or talk about it because they signed the NDAs, yada, yada, yada. I can kind of understand that to an extent. I also feel like that's a little, but I feel like that's a standard thing with reality TV, is that they don't get any internet access. They're totally like isolated from the outside world. But medications? So things that they're taking to keep them alive. The group ranged, and this is why it's so concerning, the group ranged in age from members of Gen Z to a competitor who said he was 82 years old, a contestant said. An elderly man signed up for this. And maybe he was in great shape. I have no idea. But I imagine he was probably one of those people, just speculating, who was on some sort of medication, one can infer. Whether it was medication that was absolutely dire to his health is a different story. But I mean, why do they need to turn in their medication? Are you looking to peddle pills now, Jimbo? You're trying to get into the pharmacy game? Yikes. Right from the start, things seemed off. No kidding. Some contestants said they had originally been told that the competition would have 1,000 participants. This was also the figure advertised by Prime Video earlier this year. But upon arrival, contestants received a video message from Mr. Donaldson reviewed by The Times, informing them that the number of contestants was higher. Obviously, there's 2,000 contestants, Mr. Donaldson said in the video. I don't remember if I said that publicly or not, but there is. Okay, I like how he's like, well, obviously there's two. Like, okay, well, why would we know that or not know that? And he did say that in the interview we just watched. So, I mean, okay, that's fair. But like, if Amazon, the people who are giving you your budget and the platform that you're going to be streaming this thing on is saying one thing and then you're saying a totally different thing in interviews, that's kind of problematic. It makes me feel like you just wanted to add to the extreme element of all of this, right? It has to be more extreme, guys. Extreme. I need more of that prime. I need more caffeine. I need more festivals. I'm raging. It's like roid rage, but caffeine rage. And MrBeast rage. It gives beast mode a whole new meaning. Like many of the people who appear in MrBeast YouTube videos, some of the contestants said they needed the cash to pay for things like student loans and medical debt, which is again ironic considering they literally took away their medication. After learning they would be competing against twice as many people, some said they felt they had been misled because you were about their odds of winning. So this is, I guess, like a picture of the Beast Game shirt. They probably didn't even get to keep it, which you want to bet. Several contestants also said they had not been warned about how little they would be given to eat and how infrequently. They described going long stretches without being fed by the production. One said she had gone over 20 hours both during the games and while they were in Vegas before and after filming. And again, and again, this is a physical competition show. This is not like Jeopardy. And even on Jeopardy, I'm sure they have like refreshments or something for the people that compete. I have no idea, but I mean, this is a competition show where you're literally burning calories. You need food is energy. That's why we eat food. And if you're not getting that nutritional value, like this stinks. This reeks of just, I don't even know. Like, can they even sue? I hope they can, because if this is true, again, this is all allegedly. And a lot of these people that have come forward are anonymous, so we have to take this with a grain of salt. But I mean, a lot of it seems to line up with the other stuff that's come out. If this is true, this has to be illegal, right? Like, isn't it part of like SAG-AFTRA? And I don't even know. I mean, and this is where it gets murky because the lines are kind of blurred, whereas this is technically a reality television show. They are framing it as a television show, even though he's a YouTuber. And I feel like a lot of the SAG-AFTRA safety guidelines that we learned about right in the Russ movie case should be applied here. Should totally be applied here. 20 hours, I mean, and like you're expected to mentally, and being on camera and being on film and having to perform because you're performing, right? That's exhausting mentally, physically, and that can cause some serious mental and physical damage to your body nonetheless. Contestants said they had expected the production to provide them with meals for the duration of their time in Nevada. I mean, that's pretty standard. Even on sets where I've been a non-union actor and I've been a what do they call a background actor on a low budget indie film, I was provided bagels and food. Like, we had snacks, we had refreshments. Even the most low budget, even on student films that I've been cast in where I made no money because it was a student film and I was a non-union actor, I was still provided food and refreshments. and sometimes even given money for food. Travel was covered a lot of times. This is insane. This is insane because it's not like you were pinching pennies, but you're knowingly telling them, you can expect this during this, and then not give it to them. Where's that $100 million going, dude? Your cool camera angle shots of the person starving in the background and sleeping in a $10 sleeping bag, people fighting over water. I mean, this is insane. This is insane. One meal described by several contestants included a tiny portion of cold oatmeal, one hard-boiled egg, and a few pieces of raw vegetables. I mean, that right there even sounds like the crap that Jamie Spears was trying to feed Britney when he had her on a diet where she could only eat like plain chicken and vegetables. And that's disgusting. Meanwhile, I can only imagine, what were you eating, Jimmy? Where were you eating? Where were you sleeping every night? Where was your crew sleeping? And by crew, I mean your crew, not your production crew, but your boys, your homeboys. Meals throughout the games were small and sporadic, contestants said. It was difficult to keep track of time without watches or phones, but contestants estimated they had been fed twice a day. And that really messes with your mind. Once in the early morning and again in the afternoon or evening, a spokesperson for MrBeast said contestants had been offered 3 meals a day. Of course, while we offered them 3 meals a day, it's not up to us to force feed them. That's the way it kind of sounds to me. On a few occasions, the production staff passed around this is my favorite, small Feastables chocolate bars. Those were the gross little candy bar that he had propped up against his caffeine can. I need more caffeine. His prime can that he was drinking in that interview. Passed around small Feastables chocolate bars, a brand created by Mr. Donaldson, and filmed some people eating and praising the candy, contestants said. Which is so ironic because going back to that interview that we just saw where he's talking about how he wants to get everything in the moment. He doesn't want to have to fake, and you understand certain things with reality TV. You're not always able to capture things at certain moments, and you capture them later. And he's like, we might have to do that here, but I don't really want to do that because that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not that guy. Everything I do is edgy, and everything I do is not scripted and in the moment and authentic and real. How is this real? The only thing real about it is that 1, your candy bar sucks, and a lot of people have said that. and two, you were literally starving people and then forcing them to eat your garbage chocolate. Get out, bro. People with food allergies and dietary restrictions said they had experienced even more trouble. Before the competition, contestants filled out forms detailing their dietary needs, which is pretty standard with a lot of these things. An FAQ document provided the contestants in advance of the event and reviewed by the Times said that all dietary and food restrictions would be taken into consideration. Yeah, okay. But several contestants said they had been served food they were allergic to and that alternatives have not been provided. Again, you would think with that $100 million budget, they would be able to, I don't know, have a little wiggle room to have a nice spread of food that caters to these people. Or guess what, Jimbo? If you don't want to do that and you want to cut corners and feed them, all the same food, then don't cast those people. Do not cast those people. There's a thought. We were treated horribly, a contestant said. They took on this challenge with 2,000 competitors. They should have known they needed an enormous crew to handle this correctly. Hungry, bruised, and bleeding, Mr. Donaldson presided over the field as the first scenes of the competition were filmed at the stadium. Contestants described how he had stepped out of a shrine-like structure and onto a platform above $5 million in cash as they were instructed to cheer. So I guess they didn't instinctually want to cheer at the presence of you, which I understand. I wouldn't. More of a boo, but they had to go back. No, you guys can't boo. You're supposed to cheer. Be happy. It's Mr. YouTube. It's MrBeast. We're all just, he's such a douchebag. We're all just looking up at the sky, screaming at him like he's got exactly this godlike complex, very much like Dan Schneider. Am I, like, seriously? He gives me Dan Schneider vibes. Guards dressed entirely in black, complete with face coverings, flanked the field. That's creepy. It's very creepy and probably triggering for some people. During the opening speeches, one contestant recalled Mr. Donaldson encouraged the participants to speak up and ask for help from the staff if they needed it. A psychologist was introduced himself to the competitors at the outset, explaining that health and safety were priorities on set. Several participants were called, reached by phone by the times after the games. That psychologist, Barry Goldstein, declined to comment on the event. So there were, for 2,000 people, there was one psychologist. What is the point of that? At that point, you might as well have no mental health counselor on there. One psychologist for 2,000 people. Okay, Jimbo. Okay, but I'm sure you got some sick shots, yo. Several contestants said that when they had sought out production staff members for assistance with medical care, food, hygiene, and hygiene issues, staff members were often not helpful and appeared to be disorganized. Some staff members yelled and cursed at contestants, one participant said. Despite reassurance that contestants' medications would be distributed to them when needed, several contestants said they had not received their medication on time, including one contestant who needed insulin, instead receiving it hours or even days after their scheduled dosing times. And that, like, oh my God, I hope, if that is true, I hope they sue the crap out of them. I really do, because that is just extremely dangerous. You are literally putting people's lives at risk before they even compete in anything. One contestant said she had initially been denied the food she required to take her medication, and had been told by staff members that she didn't actually need to eat. What? One contestant said she had initially been denied the food she required to take her medication, and had been told by staff members that she didn't actually need to eat. I mean, whoever these staff members are just pieces of human garbage. And I hope somebody says that to you in the future if you ever try to compete in one of these games, because that is disgusting. Like, who are you to say that? Who the heck? They don't actually need to eat? There's so many worse things that I want to say, but I'm going to stop myself from saying them because, one, I don't want you to deflag me, and two, they are not nice. And unlike you pieces of human poop stain, I will not stoop to your level. But that is disgusting. And after asking repeatedly, she was given half a banana. So I'm assuming this is the person who needed insulin. I mean, like, go fork yourself, whoever you are. Whoever said that to this poor person, literally. During one challenge, a scramble for team pennies to wear over their jerseys resulted in a crush of people that felt unsafe, some participants said. And then brings us back to what we were reading at the top of the episode. Contestants were instructed to supply the production staff with a Ziploc bag containing 5 days worth of undergarments. Like, that right there, like, that could have been the end of the sentence. And I would have been like, what the actual front door? In what world do you and your creepazoid staff members need to hold on to people's underwear? What do you plan on doing with that? Is this your new scheme? Are you planning on selling panties to prisoners in jail? Like, is that what you're doing? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I mean, why would you have people Ziploc their underwear? Like, get them a hotel room. Like, how hard is it? You just booked a stadium, a professional athletic sports center. You can't possibly book a few hotels, get them to even sponsor. Like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. That's an invasion of people's privacy. Like, who the hell are you to take somebody's undergarments and then dictate when they can have clean underwear? Like, that's so dehumanizing. This is so dehumanizing. This is like a torture camp. But several contestants said that they had waited hours, even days, to receive their clean underwear. And I even heard that one person said that they didn't even get their underwear back. So Ian, what are you doing with these people's underwear? Are you sniffing them? You weirdos? One woman said that when she and a group of contestants were, and this as a woman, this frustrates the ever-living crap out of me, who were menstruating during the event, had asked the production staff about getting their underwear more quickly. She had been told that it was not a medical emergency, and she recalled that a nearby member of the production staff had laughed at the woman's pleading. I mean, that, and again, no shade to my guys in the audience, because I know that you guys don't think this way, and you aren't pigs, and for that, I commend you. I commend you for being amazing men. But I have to speculate here. I'm sorry, I can't possibly fathom another woman telling this woman that this is not a medical emergency. Because if you are a woman, you know what it's like. It can be extremely painful. Extremely painful with the cramping and all the premenstrual symptoms. But not only that, too, it's unsanitary to be wearing the same that's disgusting. That's actually disgusting. Not being able to change your pad, not being able to change, I don't know, your tampon if you're wearing a tampon. And guess what? If you leave that thing in too long, again, not to be gross or graphic, that can cause toxic shock syndrome, which is a medical emergency, because if you leave that in too long, it can cause the following: a rare but potentially life-threatening illness that can affect anyone, including men, children, and post-menopausal women. So again, it can affect anybody. It's caused by certain strains of bacteria, such as this giant word, so staph and strep, that produce toxins that spread throughout the body and damage organs. TSS is more common during adolescence and is thought to be associated with tampon use in menstruating women, but other risk factors include skin wounds, surgery, and the use of other devices like menstrual cups, contraceptive sponges, and diaphragms. So again, not to be like TMI, but just to give you yes, it is, in fact, a medical emergency. And not to mention, it's disgusting. And who wants to be swimming in that for several days? Who wants to be sitting in that for several days and sleeping on the stadium floor in these $10 sleeping bags? Not me, where you're starving to death and all you have to eat are these gross, disgusting chocolate bars that you have to be like, oh, I'm so grateful for MrBeast. Yeah, no, thank you. So shame on you. Whoever this production staff member is, who laughed and who told this woman no, I hope you go to hell. There is a very special place for you in hell. A very special place. You are a deplorable human being, and I hope you go to hell. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel, because that's absolutely deplorable. I'm just saying. We don't need human beings who are responsible for the safety of other human beings on these sets. Contestants felt that the staff was overwhelmed by the volume of competitors. Yeah, no shit, because sorry, I'm absolutely outraged at this point. No shit. Because you said you originally promised 1,000, and that was probably too much to bite off anyways. But now you up the ante to 2,000. So yeah, it is probably overwhelming. And I do feel bad for the staff, because I'm sure there were people on the staff that were good and were trying their best, and maybe they just got overwhelmed by all of it, and they didn't know how to react or handle things properly. And for that, I do feel bad. But at the same time, I mean, for all the human poop stains who are refusing basic human rights, I really hope you burn in hell. So in addition to these behind the scenes issues, things did not appear to run much more smoothly when it came to the competition itself. So the first challenge involved 5 teams of 400 people pulling ropes attached to it that 10,000 pound weights as fast as possible. There's that word again, fast, because everything with Jimmy is fast, right? Extreme and fast. The issues began, participants said, when they were broken into those teams. A scramble for team pennies quickly became chaotic and frightening, several said, describing a crush of people pushing and shoving other contestants while the production staff was unable to calm the crowd because there's too many people. How do you calm a crowd of 400 people? I mean, that's like a mosh pit at a music festival. Once you get in the pit, it's hard to get out. One contestant described hyperventilating amid the scene. Another said she had been almost horizontal and had feared being trampled. And that is not fun, because I have been in a mosh pit before where I have gone down a couple of times and I have been like trampled. The difference is that there are more people who participate in, if you're into like that, in the heavy metal scene and stuff like that, or in the punk scene, there is like a mutual understanding of like, we don't do that. And if somebody goes down, everybody in the crowd supports and we pull you back up, and we are a community and we are together and we look out for each other. And this is not the case with something like this. And it's just upsetting and sad. And I feel so bad for the people who are still competing. I know it's their choice, but I mean, some of them probably feel like if I just push through it, it'll all be worth it. And I'm saying, I mean, honestly, like, is any amount of money really worth it? Some male contestants refused to pass pennies to female contestants, with the result that one of the teams was predominantly women contestants said. Several people interviewed for this article felt they had not had a fair chance at winning the prize money given the way the teams were formed. One contestant said she had left the stadium bruised and bleeding after being injured and eliminated in the first challenge. She was handed $1,000 in a stack of dollar bills. Like, also, like, the amount of like disrespect. Like, here's like, you bring $1,000 in singles to a strip club. You don't hand that to somebody who just literally put their life on the line for 5 days for you, gave up their basic human rights so you could have the biggest reality show on the biggest streaming service ever of all time, the biggest Cashapp, whatever, all your superlatives, Jim. But at that, I mean, like, the disrespect, that is so disrespectful. $1,000 in dollar bills, you can't even write her a check. What is that, from like all the underwear, the lost underwear that magically disappeared, allegedly, that you sold online, allegedly? Yeah, I'm just speculating, but I mean, like, why do you need to take people's underwear? That was the most bizarre thing to me, but this is so disrespectful. Like, you can't even give the woman a check as a consolation prize, but she said she had to hand the money back to the producers after the cameras were off. So it's all for show, Jimmy. But that's unscripted, right? Competitors were told they would receive real payments later. So it's like when you get an award at these award ceremonies and then you have to give it back and they'll mail you the real award because that's the award that they hand out to everybody who gets an award that night. I mean, this is sickening. Competitors were told they would receive real payments later, she said, but as of publication time, she had not yet been paid, and she probably won't be, unfortunately. Several contestants told The Times they had since been contacted by the production team and offered an additional $1,000. Oh, wow. Yay. Thanks, Jimmy. $1,000 whole dollars? That's life-changing. That won't even cover these people's medical bills. This won't even cover a dent into their student debt. This won't even cover probably their rent or their mortgage payment or all the meals that you didn't feed them for the last 5 days. Yeah, but okay, $2,000. Is that going to also be handed in another stack of dollar bills? You weirdo. While contestants were free to leave the competition at any time, many stayed despite the conditions, hoping to win the grand prize. Those who made it past the first challenge were given toiletry kits and sleeping bags and slept on the stadium's turf floor. And again, where was Jimmy and all his buddies shacked up in? Were they camping out in the stadium too? I hardly believe that. I hardly believe that, because he needs his beauty sleep, right? Sick. Contestants said it was difficult to get much sleep during the games. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Noting they had often been expected to sleep during daylight hours in the sunny stadium and film challenge takes at night. So I'm curious because I want to see, is this like, I guess this is like a dome one, because I don't know why in my brain I was like, oh, this is like a dome stadium, but I guess it's not. What is this stadium called again? Raiders Stadium. Allegiant Stadium. Oh, no, it is. Okay, it is. If any of you guys have been here, let me know. Like, if you've ever seen, like, a game at night, because I would love to see, like, how dark does it actually get? And it doesn't matter nonetheless. They're sleeping during the daytime, but, like, look at how much light comes in into the stadium. Look at that. How are you expecting? Just imagine all these 2,000 people sleeping on this floor. This is where people go to see concerts or sporting events for a few hours. This is not a place to sleep and then compete in these high intense games for several hours at a time without barely getting fed or barely having any chance to drink water or even having a clean pair of underwear. Oh, but you get a toiletry kit. Like, where are they supposed to pee? Are they peeing in the corner? Everybody takes turns. Yeah, you turn around, or everybody forms a circle so you can all take turns going to the bathroom. It's sick. This is a torture camp. This isn't a production. One contestant said she had expected that difficulty, given that there had often been elements of sleep deprivation in Mr. Donaldson's previous competitions. I mean, that should be strike one. And it's interesting because come to find out that his Mama Sue, who seems to really be the one who pulls the strings in his business, which is interesting. And that'll be another deep dive video at a later time. But I think she also used to be like a warden in like a military prison, or she has some kind of background in that. And I almost have to wonder, like, I'm just so curious to like understand like his dynamic with his mom, know more about her background, and like his upbringing, which I mean, I feel like we don't really know a lot about, but from some of the former employees who have come forward have speculated that, yeah, it seems like he had some kind of traumatic and I mean, I can imagine, because why, like, you have to be a sick individual to literally sleep deprive something like that. Is a torture tactic. This is a torture tactic. I don't even think they use on like POWs. Like, this is insane to me. 1,000 participants who made it through all 4 challenges in the stadium without being eliminated are now preparing for the next stage of the competition, which is set to be filmed in Canada in early August. So that is currently going on right now, and I guess we'll have more updates to share as this continues. One contestant, a self-professed longtime fan of Mr. Donaldson's, who is still in the game, said she was nervous about her safety, but planned to continue. I mean, that's reassuring. We are grateful that virtually all of those invited to Toronto for our next production have enthusiastically accepted our invitation. Spokesperson wrote in screenshots from a group chat provided to the Times. Some of the remaining contestants appeared unbothered by the experience. They had signed a contract that they were willing to die for this. And that's all we have for now in regards to that. There is also a video that Rosanna Pansino, who had collaborated with MrBeast in the past. This video here, it's 15 minutes. I'm not going to play it in this video. I'll probably do another video on that because she also has another update with a document, which we're going to cover in my next video, where essentially it's a employee's guide, I guess, like an onboarding document for new employees of what they can expect when they become a team player, an employee of MrBeast, and why it's the best company to work for in America. Literally one of the words that one of the phrases he included in that. But this is one of the videos we'll go over too that kind of sums up more about this. She has also spoken to a handful of contestants. I don't know if these are the same contestants that this New York Times reporter had also spoken to. So I will keep you posted on that. Like I said, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I wanted to really just start things off with the Beast Games, give you a little bit of an idea of who Jim Jim is as a person. And so you can make up your own mind. I don't know if you guys are fans of his, if you have no idea who he is. I know some of you, when I posted one of my statuses on the community tab, were like, who is this? So, but this is only the beginning. And this is only the most recent news. There's stuff that's dating back from weeks and weeks ago that is even worse and more sickening than what we just covered in today's video. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest in this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss that next update from me. Make sure you hit the like button, because this is a part of the story that just isn't getting as much exposure as some of the other elements. I mean, this is YouTube's golden boy. And I think this is really important, because if we're putting this person on a platform essentially as the gold standard of YouTube, I think it's important that more creators talk about it. And more importantly, that we continue to talk about it and put pressure on him to take accountability. And I understand at the end of the day that, you know, it's not just all on one person. There are multiple parties that are culpable that need to take accountability, but he is the CEO. He is the face of this brand. He is MrBeast.